So I was initially trying to avoid any news about this race because I had just come back from that red eye
Insane.
flight.
Yeah.
Got back at like 8 a.m. on Saturday morning and just needed sleep at the time. So anytime my phone would go off, you just have it there and you're looking at the notifications like, don't want to hit ESPN or F1 or
Yeah.
whatever it is. And then didn't watch the race until later that night.
Yeah. My
But
brother and sister-in-law and their kids came to visit. All of a sudden, my brother just gets a text and he's like, apparently the race was crazy. I was like, stop. Let's recap. Let's just talk about Silverstone. This is one of the most monumental races in the F1 season. It's got a lot of history to it. It's got a lot of drivers that have tried their hardest to win this.
yeah.
Lewis Hamilton has won more there than I think any active driver and possibly any driver in the history. He's on 8 right now. Going into Silverstone, what were your thoughts?
So, yeah, of course, it's a historic track. 75 years ago, it's where F1 all began. So it's always an exciting race. It seems like it's one of those bucket list races. It's somewhere that I gotta go at some point in my life. And then, of course, we have the ongoing battle between Piastri and Norris. Hamilton always performs well there, and he, was doing well up until Q3 and kind of fumbled the last sector there. And so, everyone's kind of on the edge of their seat to see if Lando can get his first win of the season and first win with Ferrari there. And then just to throw a wrench in everything, you have Max, getting pole position despite his struggles in the Red Bull recently. So, yeah, so just a lot of excitement about, what was going to be the outcome of the race. And then you had the rain on top of that, just making everything even more chaotic. So, well, yeah, and we got a great product from it too.
Yeah.
I think it's only fitting too that being right after the F1 movie comes out, probably have hundreds of thousands of new fans watching an F1 race for the first time. And then you get a race like that is, I think, perfect. And you're going to have a bunch of fans, new fans coming back to watch more.
It was the perfect race to get people hooked.
Yeah.
Because I think you had an incredible, spoiling the rest of it a little, but you had an incredible victory for Lando Norris in his home race for the first time, winning at Silverstone. You had Hulkenberg piling through from 19th to 3rd. And you just had so much combat throughout the race, so much strategy, so much unforeseen aspects of it with the weather, right? The rain pouring throws everything out the window. All your plans, what do you want to do? Do you want to stay on inners? Do you want to try your luck with some slicks? I think we got to see all of that play out across the different teams. When the race started, the most exciting parts a lot of times to start a race are going to be the first lap or two. Were there things in the first lap or two that you were looking out for that you think just kind of changed a lot of the momentum?
Well, you had a couple teams try to go out on the slicks, which was an interesting gamble, but, teams are trying to take an opportunity and see if they can, get a step ahead. And it didn't seem to work out for most of those that ended up switching to the slicks off the intermediates. It seemed like that last sector was still pretty wet. And so the top drivers, Lando, Max, Verstappen, they all stayed out on the intermediates and just sort of playing it safe there. Liam Lawson, he got hit by Ocon on the first lap as well. So just excitement right off the start. And and then we didn't know what the weather was going to be for the rest of the race, and teams trying to predict that and what's their strategy going to be. And we were just losing driver after driver, for the first 10 laps there. It's pointing for Colapinto, started in the pits because of the engine change, and then just never got out of the pit.
Yeah, especially as a young new driver, right? Like every race matters, and you're going to beat yourself up over every little thing. And then you have a situation where it's not your fault, car wouldn't go. And so we had some phenomenal racing throughout the entire race, right? We had Max trying to defend from Piastri for as long as he could. We had Lando and Hamilton going at it. How do you think Max drove from the start? Because in my opinion, he did the absolute best he could defending that spot and then continuing. And his spin out was super difficult because he went from such a great position to then just not being able to rebound from it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he just, it was a rare Max mistake. He just put a little too much on the gas there on the restart and spun out and lost, I think, 8 positions from it. So, yeah, I think part of it too was a little bit of a distraction and maybe just a little bit heated in the moment too
Mhm.
from almost hitting the back of Piastri there when Piastri slammed on his brakes. Yeah, it ended up being a really disappointing race for him, of course.
So let's talk about that a little more.
Yeah,
The Piastri incident,
yeah,
right? The thing that led him to get that 10-second penalty is something that I think the first time we saw him get angry in
yeah,
the history of us watching
yeah.
F1. What what happened?
He just with when you restart behind the safety car, you can't be slamming on your brakes, accelerating,
Mhm.
slamming on your brakes again. You can go at a slow pace before you really take off. But I think, just put a little too much pressure on the brakes, and yeah, so that's gonna be dangerous for the drivers behind him.
Mhm.
Max kind of had to swerve out, to the right side of him. It could be debated, is Max just trying to play it a little bit and make it look a little more dramatic than it was?
And when you look at it from the dash cam of Max's perspective, it was hard to avoid him, right? Like you have so much rain or the water splashing up, and then all of a sudden he just sees a car in front of him going substantially slower than he would expect and has to swerve out of the way,
Yeah.
right? The F1 driver's reaction time is kind of the only reason he didn't end up in the back of Piastri. And what you just mentioned, so talk to me a little bit more about that force that was applied on the brakes. So they actually, this entire incident went to the stewards
Yeah.
and they investigated it. What did that investigation look like?
Yeah, so they ended up looking at the telemetry data, and I think they had said that Piastri had put something like 60 psi of pressure on his brakes, where in comparison, Russell a couple weeks ago had only put 30 psi or so. And so, each incident is different. It's not exactly the same as the Russell incident was, but I think ultimately it probably was justified that he got the 10-second penalty. That's kind of the standard penalty time now that they seem to be applying to a lot of these drivers. And yeah, and ultimately ended up costing him the race. I think Piastri did get lucky after that in that there were no additional safety cars,
Mhm.
because he was really banking on there being no more safety cars and then building up enough time that he could pit again and then still
Mhm.
be in second behind Lando. But if we had any other safety cars, he's at risk of, if he pits again or whatever happens, everyone's bunched up together to get back together. And he could get passed or, fall back in the driver rankings there.
Yeah. And that's
Um,
why it was important for him to at least serve his time before the possibility of another safety car, which is so possible with the amount of rain and
yeah.
weather conditions that was going on. The aftermath of him getting that penalty, he was angry. He was angry and he played the proposition of him switching with Lando. How do you think Lando would have taken that?
Yeah, it was definitely the most emotions we've seen from Piastri. He's so, robotic and calm and level-headed, and you just never get anything out of him. Even after, his first wins, it's hard to just get any emotion out of Piastri. But you could really see it after that race, and he was mad. He was, not happy with how the race went, and I think in the back of his head, it's the championship battle between him and Lando now is just so much closer. And Lando did, kind of get away
Mhm.
with a win in that race. So of course, Piastri again looked just like the faster driver, but Lando was able to pull away with the win, and that's part of the sport too. If you get a penalty, that can cost you the race, and it's just something he has to be more careful for in the future. But we'll see what ends up going down with the championship contention here. I think it just makes it more exciting for the fans.
Mhm.
They're now 8 points separated in the world championship standings. So yeah, it's going to be great racing for the second half of the season.
Yeah, it's exciting, and I think the concept that McLaren and Zach Brown are still letting them race, because right now, how do you can't pick one.
Yeah.
You can't pick a driver to throw your support behind and be like, this is who by far is going to easily win the world championship. We need to just do everything to help make sure that happens. This is way too early. And I think 4 to 5 races, is that conversation going to get adjusted again? Probably. but it also depends on what the points difference is.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit easier to let them race too when you know you have the best car, and even Max he's still in, he could still make a comeback in the second half of the season, but he's pretty far back right now. It's looking pretty clear cut that it's going to be Lando versus Piastri. So,
and from the Constructors' Championships part, right, McLaren is just light years ahead. It would take some serious disasters for anyone to even come close to them right now. I think this was an incredible win for Lando, but no one's really talking about that, right? The hot topic, the thing that everyone's excited about from Silverstone is Nico Hulkenberg.
He did it.
He did it.
He finally did. I guess I was a little bit naive that he had never got a podium before. Tara had told me, like, oh, yeah, it'll be his first podium. And I was just thinking, yeah, with Kick Sauber, right? Like, surely he's got all of his years of racing. He's got at least third place before. And yeah, 238 races he never had. So he finally did it. It was awesome just seeing the team reaction too, them just jumping up and down, waving the Swiss flag. And then Nico's excitement as well was just awesome.
And it felt like the other racers were so excited.
Yeah,
right?
everyone.
Lewis Hamilton, Max was the first one to congratulate him and, just spoke highly of him. I think Mercedes and Aston Martin both sent them champagne, to help them celebrate. I think it was incredible for Nico, but it was also incredible for Kick Sauber, right? I think this is something that they deserved, and they've been working so hard to develop their car, to support their drivers. Their team's just been putting in so much work, and the rest of the F1 teams, of course, have been too. And it's got to feel so good to have some form of a podium of that on your accomplishments now.
Yeah.
So much respect to them. They're a phenomenal team, phenomenal group. I mean, I think it's easy to support them. So a lot of love. I think we got to get some Steak Kick merch.
Yeah. I mean, they're back up they're in 6th in the team standings now. They've made huge strides over the past 4 or 5 races, really racking up some points. So it's, putting Audi definitely in a good place when they become the team next year. And so that they got to be happy about that. What were your thoughts on the Lego trophy?
Personally, I loved it, right? I don't know if you guys can see behind me, but there's a Lego F1 Ferrari there. And I know you are as well, but a huge Lego fan, right? I think Piastri's comment was a little interesting, but I kind of get his perspective when he asked Nico, like, how does it feel to finally put him to a Formula One race, and it's a Lego trophy. I think Nico played it off perfectly. He's like, well, my daughter will love it. I'll love it. I get the thought there, but it's also like, when you compare the F1 trophies to the Saudi Arabia one that's like handcrafted and, probably dipped in gold, I think it's easy to think, maybe this is a less valuable trophy, but the reality is you're getting the trophy because you got a podium at a race, so I love it. I support it.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
I would have wanted it. Yeah. I thought it looks really good too. It looks like a trophy.
It looked real.
He's just got to keep it out of the sunlight, or it's just going to fade over a couple of years versus, bronze, steel, gold, whatever else.
He's got a daughter. And I guess my biggest fear, if I had a kid, was that be like they dropped it. But the reality is it'd kind of be fun to put back together. Yeah. As long as you found all the pieces. Oh, man. I think it was a great race. I think it's sad to see Antonelli have to retire, Pinto not even get off to a start. Whenever racers aren't able to finish or have to retire the car or get into an accident, it's always sad because there's so much work that goes into them being prepared for that race, but also for the team. The team is ready to go. The team is so supportive. And then when you don't even have a chance to, show your stripes and show the work that you've been putting in, it's just unfortunate. Going into, we have a 3-week break. There's a lot of conversation right now about what's next for Max and who Cadillac is going to end up choosing as their drivers or announce as their drivers. Let's start with Max.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to stay with Red Bull.
Okay.
I think I could see him going to Aston Martin.
Really?
I think he's going to.
Over who?
Over Mercedes.
No, sorry. Who is he replacing at Aston Martin?
I think he'll replace Stroll in Aston Martin.
Really?
Yeah. I think, they've seen, even Mr. Stroll has maybe seen, Lance has had his time, if we really want to make this team successful and give us a chance to get into the championship contention, like, we need 2 solid drivers. He's already got that in Alonso. I think they're just going to give Max a massive contract and see what Max and Adrian Newey are able to do together. I know there's a lot of talk right now about can Mercedes pull Max, but I just, in the back of my head, I just feel like they're not going to get the job done. And I think there's just going to be too much internal riff with, having to push Russell out. And you have the young driver Antonelli that you don't want to push him out. And so, yeah, I think it'll end up being Max probably going to Aston Martin if I had to make a prediction. But it's, what do I have to base that off of? It's just pure speculation.
If it happens, you heard it here first and probably only. I think.
What are your thoughts?
What you say about Adrian Newey would probably be the biggest pull to Aston, right? Adrian Newey and the fact that theoretically they have limitless pockets and an extreme desire to build a championship team. I think the challenge with Aston Martin is that Max wants to win and he wants to win now, right? He wants a car that's ready to go. And I don't know if Aston's there. I think Toto has a shot of recruiting Max. I think he would replace Russell and it would be the perfect mentor for Kimi. I think you have I think Kimi's going to be the next franchise driver in a sense for Mercedes. He's incredibly young. He's incredibly gifted. He just needs direction and time to mature into the next class of world championships drive, the next Max in a sense, the next Lewis. And who better to learn from and to be a teammate of than someone you look up to and someone who supports you. And that I think that person's Max. I think the craziest prediction I could possibly throw out would be Max to Mercedes, replacing Russell to Cadillac alongside Perez or Sainz from Williams, and then Piastri to Red Bull. I think it's hard for him to walk away from McLaren, right? I think that it's crazy. It'd be crazy to walk away from an award-winning team with the best car. I think the time to do it, though, would be next year, where there's so many rule changes, there's so many car changes, and you have a new team entering. There's going to be a big mix of what can happen next year. And is Cadillac going to hit the ground running? They've been developing what they have, purely focusing on next season from their announcement of entering F1. Do they have the upper hand? Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I could see Piastri leaving McLaren yet. McLaren just has so much good going for them right now. Clearly have the best car today. Will they next year? It's so hard to say, but they definitely have all the developmental resources they need. They've proven that when they're struggling as a team or with their car, they can develop it and make it better. And that's how they've gotten to the point they are now.
And they're a true automotive company.
Yeah.
Right? They are ingrained in making excellent automotives.
And Red Bull I feel like they haven't figured out the ongoing issues that they have yet. Max is struggling with the car. They can't get a second driver that can drive the car. And so I think if you're a driver looking at that team right now, you can't feel comfortable committing to a team like Red Bull if you're already on McLaren and having so much success there.
Yeah, and you have so much going for you, and I'm sure it's a massive paycheck. I think the odds of that happening are extremely low. If I could parlay it, it'd be like $1 parlay, but it probably has, I would be an instant millionaire if that hits. But that would be my absolutely wild prediction. Realistically, with the drivers that are available right now, Cadillac has to choose two. Right? I think Bottas has tease at being one of them in a few clips, but who do we think is going to take those two seats?
I would love to see Bottas back. If Russell gets pushed out, I think it's going to be him. So you'd have Russell and Bottas. That would be a fun team to watch. If not, maybe someone like, you could get Vettel back in there. We could get Sonny
Hayes. Sonny Hayes is going to jump in.
Sonny Hayes in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so hard to say right now. We'll see. But we got 3 weeks coming up until Belgium. Anything else you're looking for in those 3 weeks or expectations, going into Belgium, what you're going to be watching for?
I think we're going to see the McLarens continue to compete. I think we're going to see Max continue to do the best he can with the car. The question that I have a lot of times is what's going to happen to Yuki? Are they going to try and make another driver change? And if so, who? Or is he going to find a way to be comfortable with a car that seems undrivable. The other thing, I mean, I think Hamilton, finished in a great position of fourth. I think the whole time I was feeling so conflicted and wanting Hulkenberg to get his first podium, but also wanting Hamilton to catch up in those last few laps. Leclerc didn't perform how he wanted, or I think how any Ferrari fan, overall the team didn't perform how we wanted them to perform. So I'm always going to biasly, root for them to continue to shoot for that 1-2 podium. The other thing I'm going to think is that, as we kind of alluded to, but Kick has a lot of potential and momentum coming off of their performance at Silverstone and their repeated performance of starting a little closer to the back, but then being able to drive their way to a point scoring position. And so what's next for them? I think being able to continue on the momentum is something that's exciting, but it also lights a little bit of a fire under the rest of the mid-car competing teams. How is Williams going to respond? How is Racing Bulls going to respond? How is Aston Martin going to respond? A little bit of a fire, and it showed you they catapulted to sixth. One race can truly make or break millions of dollars in the Constructors' Cup. So I think it's going to be an exciting little break and an exciting first race. But we'll be sure to recap all of it after the race.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting second half of the season.
And the other thing I was kind of thinking about is it'd be kind of fun to start doing a little bit of a giveaway across our social medias. If post a video asking people to guess and comment who they think is going to place second or fourth or something like that in the race, and then do a little bit of like a $10 gift card, towards Legos.
Or we could give away the little F1 cars.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever.
If you guess it right.
F1 car of choice. So
yeah. But be sure to follow us on all social medias. It's Angio Grand Prix, ANGIO GRAM Prix, PRIX on every single social media. So be sure to give us a follow and be sure to look out for those videos. But thank you guys for listening. Cheers. We have to chug this. We got to go get tacos.